And somebody, I think, who was Toki? Was you that told me about the barnstorming, or the barn building? Yeah. So the barn raising. So there's a tradition here about barn raising when people just create something together. I call it cook together. So in the expression, you're going to invite people to the kitchen of your thought, and you're going to share with them the ingredients of your thought as opposed to the cooked product. You're not going to serve dinner in the dining room. You're going to bring them onto the kitchen. You're going to let them see how you cooked your thought. And you're going to allow them to participate in the cooking process. And that's going to create a lot of safety and connection in the conversation. Inviting the other person to participate in the thought process with their perspective, as opposed to simply react to the thought product. The other side is inquiry or listening. So when the other person expresses, you are receiving and helping them express. These are mirror images. You'll see that's what allows you to take 200% responsibility in the conversation. If you know these two moves, when you express, you're answering the questions that the other person would ask if they knew how to ask. And when you inquire, you're teaching the other person how to express if they knew how to. So by asking some skillful questions, you can ask them to open the door of the kitchen to let you in their thought process. And by opening the door of the kitchen, you can invite them to come in, even if they don't know what questions to ask. That's going to be the two things we do. I'll start with the expression, because it's a little easier. It's your move. The inquiry, it's a little trickier, because you have to respond to the other person's move, which could be fairly toxic. So we'll start with the expression. I'm going to give you, it's almost embarrassing, the absolute cookbook instructions, like the 1, 2, 3. There's a lot more subtlety, but we don't have a lot of time, so I'll just give you the bottom line very quickly, and then if anybody's interested, you can look at the papers, and I'm also happy to recommend further books. There's a lot of research that has been done in this area. But I'll give you, if you can remember only 15 minutes worth of material, you remember this, you get enough to suffer the curse. So you'll know that you can do it, and when you don't do it, that will lead you to explore who are you that chooses not to do it. So the expression, first thing is own your opinions and take responsibility for them. So somebody mentioned this is the I statement thing. There's some truth to that. There's a wisdom in that kind of speaking, revealing yourself and saying, this is what I think. So you're not imposing your view on other people, you're simply sharing that as your view. Well, then I'll take examples from your own cases and I'll show you how to translate a toxic statement into a clean statement by doing this. Second, explain your reasoning, which is usually a combination of observations or facts and standards. So when I was doing the role play with Amy and I asked her to raise her hand, I was not challenging her to prove what she said, but I was asking her to give me an example so I could understand her standards. I don't know what she means by too long. So when you raise your hand, if we did the whole thing, and you raise your hand and say, oh, this is what Amy understands by too long. Now I can say, do I agree, do I disagree, do I have different standards? Because we would be in the same situation, which is factual, and then you would share your standards by making an assessment. I say, oh, okay, this is it. So assessments are always a combination of a factual observation and some internal standards that you have, depending on the situation. For example, if I say, this is a blue pen, in our reality, that's a fact. Okay? So nobody's going to challenge me about this pen being blue. But if I say, this is a good pen, that's not a fact. That's my opinion. In fact, I could change my opinion because it's a good pen, or I like this pen, so I'll say it's a good pen to write on the board, but it's not a good pen to write on a journal. So the pen is not good. Saying that the pen is good is pretty toxic. Owning that statement would be saying, I find this pen useful to write on the board. That's a little convoluted. But that's the essence of the transformation. So let me make two caveats at this point. First, this is a error-correcting methodology. And what I mean by that is don't change the way you speak. 95% of everything you do in life is working quite well right now. So all those conversations that you're having, keep having them. There's no problem with them. So I go see a movie, or I'll tell you, The Matrix is a great movie. And you say, yeah, it's great. And that's fine. We can be friends and we keep talking about The Matrix, such a great movie. Now, if I say The Matrix is a great movie and say, no, it sucked, at that point I'll switch to high-powered language and say, well, I liked it. Well, I didn't. Okay, now we can talk about it. But I won't use this language all the time. Sometimes people get overzealous and they start saying, well, speaking first person, I own my opinions. And it's so cumbersome. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But in the moment that the conversation gets hot, then you can switch to this language and this cools off the conversation. Some people say it has no feeling. The feeling is deeper, but at the surface it looks like it's taking a lot of the feeling away. It's just becoming, that's why Orange loves this, because it's very, very rational. It feels very, very rational. It's not, but it appears like that, and I'll share with you why it's not. So explain your reasoning. And the third move is you project implications and recommendations for action. If that's the case, they need to be concrete. So maybe you don't say this in a conversation, but every expression has this structure because it's a temporal structure. You're owning it in the present, you're grounding it in the past, what you have seen and the standards you bring with you, and you're projecting it towards the future. So what? This is what, why do I think it, and what's the implication of what I think. And it's a complete statement. It really helps the other person understand where you're coming from. You're leaving the roots on. You're giving them the plant with the roots. So let's just say I want to do an activity tomorrow that may involve some people choosing to go to another room. So I ask Dustin to check with the hotel, see if there was another room available. So let's suppose that he comes and says, Fred, this room is available. And I just go and say, oh, this is ridiculous. This room is terrible. And I walk away. So he feels wronged. He feels belittled, that he did something bad. He doesn't understand. I said, fix this. Please bring me a room that's reasonable. Come on. Don't be a jerk.